and welcome, beloved, to the Dr. Mumbi Show. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all of your ways and that you are moving into living your best life. I really want to take this opportunity to thank all our PayPal and Patreon supporters. We appreciate love each and every one of you. You really are the backbone of this show. You really make it possible for us to deliver all the different news that's coming out of the African continent. Now, this is something that we had reported on a while back, but it's still been making the news. I think we reported on it earlier in the year. And it's basically Ethiopia. I've told you this before. Ethiopia is building like the biggest hydroelectric dam in Africa. It's known as the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. They actually broke ground all the way back in 2011, and they have been stalling and waiting for negotiations. But July 2020 was the year that they were going to start, filling that dam. Or it's July 2012 in Ethiopia, according to the Ethiopian calendar. And if you look at the 2020 calendar and the 2012 calendar, they're exactly the same stories for other days. Let that sink in. But now, so they had said, from July, they were going to start filling the dam. And it's actually going to take about 7 years to fill the dam. But there's been a lot of backlash and kind of creation of obstacles from the Egyptians who, the Egyptian government who has tried to stall. They even went as far as going to Trump all the way in Washington, D.C. Sudan showed up as well. But the negotiations fell through because Ethiopia failed to rock up to Washington, D.C. to discuss the issues. And now what has happened is that Egypt has actually appealed to the United Nations Security Council in a bid to stop Ethiopia. But Ethiopia has said, has rejected Egypt's, appeal to the United Nations Security Council, saying that this is beyond the mandate of the United Nations, saying that they also did not need to negotiate, but this was something that could be handled. And whether there was a deal or whether there was no deal, Ethiopia was going to go ahead and start filling the dam. Now, the reason that Egypt is kind of, getting their knickers in a bunch is because over 90% of their needs, of their freshwater needs, come from the Nile. And Ethiopia is actually has built this Renaissance Dam along the Blue Nile. And so it will really, Egypt is trying to say that this will really hamper, their access to fresh water because they're further downstream, etc., etc. But Ethiopia has said, like it or not, we're going to start filling the dam. And this is going to be an epic game changer for electricity, not just in Ethiopia, not just in the Horn of Africa, but across Africa. It is an epic game changer. And that's why we've been seeing such a push and pull, from the powers that be who have not wanted Ethiopia to do this, because this will change the game forever. In terms of it's going to be the biggest, of such a hydroelectric dam. And it has actually cost $4.6 billion. And, Ethiopia has really stood firm. And, as I love their, foreign minister, Gedu Andargeshu, he said, for us, it is not mandatory to reach an agreement before starting filling the dam. Hence, we will commence the filling process in the coming rainy season. And the rainy season in Africa is here. He said, we are working hard to reach a deal, but still we will go ahead with our schedule, whatever the outcome is. If we have to wait for others' blessings, then the dam may remain idle for years, which we will not allow to happen. And then he went on, this is the language you want to see. He went to say, Ethiopia will not beg Egypt and Sudan to use its own water resources for its own development. And, Ethiopia taking a massive step in deciding, it's in taking a sovereign decision. And, they have tried to go the diplomatic way, but they've said, if this thing gets more complicated, we're going to do it anyway. And I think, it's very rare that we see African governments having the kahunas the way Ethiopia is. And have you noticed all of a sudden recently there's a lot of mainstream media that are saying how Ethiopia is facing turmoil because of this ABCD and, it's unrest, and Abiy Ahmed, who they just gave a Nobel Prize to last year, now they're saying that, will he manage to bring around the, the revival in Ethiopia, etc., etc. And it's just I'm proud of Ethiopia for taking this, because this will totally change Africa's landscape, especially in terms of giving cheaper electricity. And with cheap electricity, that really helps to push and accelerate any kind of industrial revolution. And Ethiopia's foreign minister, he was actually doing an interview with the international press, and he said, Egypt, this dam should have been a reason for cooperation and regional integration, not a cause for controversies and warmongering. Egyptians are exaggerating their propaganda on the dam issue and playing a political gamble. Some of them seem as if they are longing for a war to break out, and that has been one of the questions that has been asked, if Ethiopia went ahead to fill the dam, would Egypt respond? Because we had even seen Trump actually backing Egypt and saying, we will defend you. And usually what that would happen is, back in the day, people would be like, oh no, Egypt has a backing of America, so they could attack us militarily, so we're not going to do it. But we're in a new season. We're a new breed of Africa, and I think Ethiopia is definitely leading the way on that. And they've said, the dam is indispensable for its development. They've insisted Egypt's water share will not be affected. They say they will take into consideration if there are any low rainy seasons, etc., and adjust the filling of the dam, but the filling of the dam must go on. Let me know what you think. This is quite unprecedented. Quite unprecedented. Are you siding with Ethiopia? Do you think Ethiopia should just take their sovereign right? It's their fresh water. The lake is in their country, and do what they need. Or will this really affect our Egyptian brothers and sisters? Or should we say cousins? Or, Anyway, there's so many things we could say about that. Those are stories definitely for other days. But until next time, tuko pamoja.
And that is the most unique thing that we have as Gambians. Like, we interact with one another, we live with one another. It doesn't matter how big the family is. We share everything, no matter how little it is. And people are content with that. That even if things are going hard, you can still observe smiling faces under each and every person that you meet along the street. So that is a plus for everybody in the Gambia. And that is why I'm a proud Gambian and a proud African, and I believe I can make it, and I'm going nowhere but in the Gambia. Nobody is going to do it for us.
That's right.
If we are all running away, when are we going to make it? We have to stay in Africa, develop in Africa, and then show to the world that Africa have a better image than the one they portray in the West. I think this is what we all need to do as Africans, and then we promote that as Pan-Africans and also as Gambians.
Excellent. I couldn't have said it better myself, actually. I propose that you come and do some shows with me. This brother's got it going on. Yeah. But seriously, I think that the misrepresentation of Africa has, it permeated my brain, and I knew, because I was coming from a Pan-African background, but still, the images are forced upon us. So I think you young Gambians have a responsibility to show the other side of Gambia, the Gambia that, we diasporians and many people in the West don't see. They just don't see it.
Exactly. I think that is the work of the academics. That is the work that we need to do as young scholars. For far too long, people have been portraying Africa negatively to the outside world. And we know that that was done by individuals whose sole aim was to dominate Africa, to exploit Africa's resources, and then to continue to colonize us politically. Now, our role as academics, as young scholars, is how do we make sure that this picture is changed from the literature itself, going back to rewrite the books, to rewrite the history of Africa, and then to show to the world that we have a better image that the world is actually seeing as of today. And then you also come to realize that we need to invest in Africa, because foreign investment always leads to capital flies and etc. Because people who come in and invest, at the end they can take all the resources, and then you come to realize that it becomes another challenge for us. But when Africans invest, the money stays in Africa, which is a plus. It can enhance, it can help when it comes to employment, when it comes to coming up with all the facilities and then enhancing the development that we own that we all desire as Africans and etc. I think that is what we need to do as we speak, and that is what we all Africans need to be thinking into that particular line, like trying to see how we can repent that particular picture shown by the outsiders about Africa, because they in fact, let me tell you, there was this quotation that I read. It was actually done by a British parliamentarian, Lord Macaulay, in 1835. He speaks about Africa, and then he said, in order for the West to dominate Africa, they need to overthrow our very backbone, and that is our education system. When we believe that everything that is Western is correct, then they can dominate us forever.
Exactly.
And that is 1835. They've been working on those bases. So today it is high time, because we know the realities. Let us try to rewrite the history. Let us try to work again and attract investment in Africa by Africans.